Hey guys, Anthony and Max here for Rev 3 Games. It's Comic Con week.
It is.
You are a comic book guy.
I'm a comic book guy.
You love comic books.
It doesn't matter if you're into comic books or not because Comic Con is about everything now.
Yes.
Absolutely everything. Including video games.
And comic books and video games have had quite a long and rocky relationship.
I'd say so.
You know, for every Arkham City, there is something that is on this list. This is our top 5 worst video games based on comic books. Number 5.
I'll start here. Spawn the Eternal, which was for the PlayStation, came out in 1997. If you have any fond memories about video games in this generation, and you'd like to be reminded about the worst parts of them, look at this game. It's clumsy, it's weird and blocky. They couldn't make Spawn's cape right, so he just kind of like waddled around in a sewer, and you'd get to fight scenes and his cape would suddenly show up, and then he'd do this bad sort of attempted beat 'em up.
Yeah.
And again, Spawn is a guy who's like a military trained special ops guy who sold his soul to Satan and then has magic powers, and he's just doing bum fights in the sewer here. So what's
doing
the deal?
Marquis of Queensberry rules.
I think what's sad is that Spawn could make such an incredible game.
Well, they tried a number of times, and and it failed pretty much every time.
Yeah. I would say the best Spawn adaptation made was probably The Darkness 2. So go check out The Darkness 2 because it could be Spawn.
It makes sense because I think the Darkness comic is a better Spawn than Spawn ever was, too.
You could say that.
Ooh, he said it. Coming in at number 4, Incredible Hulk, The Pantheon Saga. This is beautiful because it's everything that's wrong about comic book adaptations and everything that's wrong about 90s licensed video games smushed together. This is such a rush job. They got the rights to the character and then didn't care about anything that makes the character what it is.
You know what I like about the Hulk? He's always solving all those puzzles with his brain.
Yeah. Here you're taking a guy who is known for smashing up entire cities, and he is platforming, pushing boxes, flipping switches, and it's got that bad 90s early 3D production value too. So the Hulk is like a pre-rendered sprite on these terrible low poly backgrounds. The animations are stiff and weird. Horrible, horrible game. Though there has been an amazing Hulk game made, Hulk Ultimate Destruction, which is basically Crackdown with the Hulk.
Yeah, I was actually fond of the one that came before that, the first Hulk movie game.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun. And the one for Genesis and Super NES. That was a decent platformer too.
It can be done right. This just was not it.
I think the key thing when making a Hulk game is just to pay attention to Hulk's catchphrase, which is just Hulk smash. So, you know, maybe take some cues from that. You were saying that's a bad use of a license. I would say a worse one would be Quest Probe, featuring Spider-Man. This was, of course, this was a text adventure that was on like the Apple II and the Amiga.
It was a graphical text adventure. Came out in 1985. It was the brainchild of Scott Adams.
Yeah, who's a comic man himself. He's a creator of Dilbert, which is great. Dilbert is a great comic about a guy in an office who walks around and says some things. Spider-Man is a superhero who swings around on webs and fights crime, so a text adventure doesn't work so great.
Well, what's funny is he went with what he knew. He took a comic and made it about walking around in an office saying things. This has Spider-Man doing things like, "Hey, Spider-Man, please look in a crib."
Hey, what's in the crib, Spider-Man? Oh, it's a gem. Hey, Spider-Man, pick up the gem. Okay.
My favorite thing about this game is you could tell Spider-Man to die, and he would graphically describe how he was choking on his own blood. But he never spun a web.
It's like he knew he was in the game. So of course the big one, the big doozy. This is we're cheating a little bit here because this is actually based on a cartoon, but Superman 64, based on the animated series, came out obviously for Nintendo 64, 1999. This is considered widely one of the worst games of all time.
Superman has not had a good history of being adapted into video games, but this, no one deserves this, man. So this was the game where they basically explained and rationalized how poor their graphics engine was by saying there was kryptonite fog throughout Metropolis.
He was sucked into a virtual reality.
Yes.
Right.
With kryptonite fog that took away his powers, your ability to control him, and your ability to see anything 4 feet in front of you. It was basically just the flying through rings part of Star Fox, but done poorly.
Right, and they labeled that as maze levels. So Lex Luthor would say, "Solve my maze," which is probably it's about as bad as Magneto's "Welcome to Die" line in the X-Men arcade game, except that has the excuse of being poorly translated from Japanese, whereas this is actually, you know, a game, you know, and it's not even a maze, it's just rings. So that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm gonna say the worst comic book game ever is any of the Garfield games.
You can't do this.
Yes, you can. They've made almost 20 Garfield games over the last 30 years. Just Garfield.
Garfield is so inoffensive, and nobody cares about those games.
Garfield is a cat who sits around and eats lasagna, and he complains about it being Monday. Why would you make a video game about a cat that sits there and doesn't do anything?
Nobody in the world.
They've made like 20 games.
Nobody in the world is disappointed by a Garfield game because nobody cares.
Why are they there? Why are they there? They're the worst thing you could possibly have a game about. Garfield. Garfield.
So there you go. Those are our top 5. I would say top 4.5. I don't know if I'm going to give you Garfield. Worst video games based on comic books. Let us know what your least favorite adaptations are down below in the comics. There's so many. Such a rocky relationship, comic books and video games. And do remember to subscribe here at Rev3 Games, because we do so much talking about video games.
We do.
So many top 5 lists.
Do. Garfield, we're coming for you.
That's not, we don't even care about Garfield. You're fine, Garfield.
You're the worst.
You're not the worst.
He's the